Welcome to Groundbreakers podcast. I am your host, Nick Stilo, and my co-host, Joe Villar.
Welcome, everyone.
And on this episode of Groundbreakers, my producer, Stefano, says he wants to get a little controversial. So let's see what he's got for us.
This episode, we are talking controversy. And I got to be the first one to ask you, Nick, this idea of municipalities and red tape. What's going on in that situation?
So look, municipalities have a job to do, and they need to make sure that developers are planning communities that are in line with their official plan or in line with what they want to see in the community. You can't have a developer that comes in and says that they want to build a 50-story tower in the middle of a suburban subdivision, right? Just because you're a landowner, there's nothing that stops landowners from putting in development applications and planning applications to do something that they want on their property, but there are limitations. So, red tape can be defined as limitations or setbacks or, the time that it takes to get approvals and the challenges that there are to get those approvals. So, first and foremost, when you're a developer looking at a piece of property, you have to do your due diligence ahead of closing on that property. So you're going to tie up a property, you're going to put a deposit with the seller, and you're going to take some time to, have a feasibility study done on the property, have a plan drawn up by an architect, and give you a general idea of what you can do with that property. From that, you're going to then run your budgets, run some numbers, always high level, 40,000 feet in the air, but a pretty good idea of whether the property is worth buying and pursuing as a development site. And then from there, you're going to approach the municipality and you're going to do something called a pre-con, which is a pre-construction consultation, where you're going to go in and you're going to sit around the entire planning staff and you're going to present to them your plan for that piece of land that's in their municipality. And you're going to say, this is what we want to do. And they're going to give you your feedback. And a lot of times you're going to get pushback because a lot of times official plans can be old. They could be 5-10 years old and they haven't been updated and things have changed and times are moving really, really fast and things are changing really, really fast. So sometimes municipalities aren't as quick to change their official plans and to change their zoning for a particular site or for a particular street or a stretch of land or a stretch of road and what they want to see there. And sometimes it takes a little bit of a gutsy developer to walk in there and say, look, we know that there's 8 stories all around here. We want to put a 20-story here. And why does this make sense? And you give your argument and you hope that the city's on board with you.
But that leads me into the next controversy, Joe, and I want you to tackle this one. Hoping that the city's with you, hoping that the politicians are with you, there's a story that I've heard that some of the bigger builders have a bit more pull, a little bit more leeway in regards to where they can build, what permits they can get. Is that actually true?
It depends. I mean, definitely there is always the push behind the developer to bring in density. At the end of the day, that's what we need. There's a very short supply of homes, and that's the number one topic in today's headlines. Not enough housing. There's not enough places for people to live.
Not enough affordable housing.
That is what
Absolutely.
I was just going to say. It's not enough affordable housing.
Yeah.
But the problem is immigration is at an all-time high. So how are they housing all of these new immigrants to this country?
That's a very good question. And that's something that we don't even have an answer to because we can't build it fast enough. When you're bringing in 500,000 immigrants in the year, our housing starts are half of that across the country. So where do you put them?
But you're limited by all the red tape. Right? So how are you guys as builders going to get around that?
We try to push the envelope, like Nick just mentioned. We try to push the envelope with the municipalities, and we try to emphasize the need for greater density. And sometimes it's a bit of an uncomfortable position for the municipalities to accept, but that's the reality of things.
I think, to answer your first point, where do some bigger builders have a little bit more pull with the municipalities? I think it comes down to their credibility and the fact that they are big builders, that they can build and will build it. So they're not dreamers. For example, I'm not going to mention the municipality, but Joe and I, we were in a pre-con. It was actually a pre-con where it was off the record with planning staff of the municipality, and the city mayor was actually in that meeting where we proposed an idea for a site that we were interested in. And the zoning for this particular site allowed for 6 stories, and we went in and said that we wanted to do 31. And we were actually met with a lot of enthusiasm. But what helped our argument a lot was our track record, where they were able to look up One Urban and see that we've built buildings, see that we've got construction underway. And we're not talking small numbers, we're talking big construction dollars here, where we have the credibility and the clout to say, look, we're not just here to rezone it, upzone the land, make some money on the upzoning, and then turn around and sell it. No, we're actually going to build this thing. So if we tell you we're going to build a 31-story, maybe we settle at 25 because you want 6, but we're going to build it. We're going to bring housing. We're going to bring property taxes to the municipality. We're going to bring permit fees to the municipality. We're going to pay for development charges that are going to help build our roads and our infrastructure. So we have that credibility. So to say that bigger developers have more advantage is not entirely true. I think they just have the credibility that they're going to do what they say they're going to do.
Wait a second here. Now, you guys are being blamed for the fact that there's a shortage in housing.
No, I think we're being blamed for the prices of housing.
Really?
Because people think that we are just making money hand over fist.
Are you making money hand over fist?
We're making no more than any other business is
Absolutely.
making. From a margin perspective, we're making a very, very, very good project. Makes
Then
15%.
Why are you getting the fingers pointed to you then?
Because we're
Because
dealing.
there's,
Yeah.
sorry,
We're dealing in big dollars at the end of the day. That's what it comes down to.
and people don't know that that's what our margins are. People think that on a $100 million project we're making $100 million in profit. No, we're not. We're making our 15% if it's a very good project, but on average, you're actually making anywhere between 8 to 11%. So the amount of risk that we take, the money that we borrow, nobody in this room has $100 million just to put into a construction project. We're borrowing that money, and we have to pay that money back. And if things go sideways in construction, and
Which they often do.
which let's face it, they often do, we're on the hook. We're providing the covenants. We're on the hook. So if we get out at the end and we make that 8 to 11%, we're entitled to it. It's no different than McDonald's selling you a Big Mac for $5 when it cost them $3. Nobody complains to McDonald's
It costs
after
a
they
lot less than that. to
probably does, but nobody complains about it. You will happily pay $5. I don't even know what the price
And
of a
why,
Big Mac now
why
is.
is that? Why is that they're not being challenged on the fact that they're raising costs when you guys are the one in the limelight?
Because it's a small ticket item versus a big ticket item.
But yours is a huge ticket item.
It's
Yours is a huge
It's the
ticket
biggest investment that most people will
Absolutely.
make in their life.
yeah.
what you do for a living.
Yes, a home is the biggest investment the average person will make in their life.
But the issue always remains, it's your fault, according to the political news, that we have a shortage of housing because you're not making them according to what we need. It's also your fault that the houses are too expensive. What do you say to the people who are blaming you solely for these very high costs of homes?
I'm going to use fact.
Yep.
The City of Toronto raised development charges 49% last year. So,
Say that again.
the City of Toronto raised development charges by 49% last year. Other municipalities have in place right now to raise their development charges by up to 50% in the next 5 years, incrementally. So let's put this into perspective. If development charges are $80,000 a unit 1 year, the next year they're $120,000 a unit. That's a $40,000 difference. Who pays for that? The developer? Why? We have to pass it on to the homeowner, or the purchaser rather. Why do we have to take that hit? And if we do take that hit, then it doesn't become profitable. And if it's not profitable, we're not going to build. We are a for-profit business. There's nothing wrong with making $1.
And when you factor in labor costs, material costs, and all these other costs that are incurred, that just drives costs up.
Look,
ultimately,
a few years ago during the pandemic, the great toilet paper shortage of 2020, wood prices went up 30%. Rebar prices went up 30%. Forming costs went up 25%. We have to Adjust.
How did you do it though?
You adjust.
But how could you adjust a price that's already been put into place and people already invested with that price?
So, in some cases, like some developers have done, they have gone back to their purchasers and asked them for more money at closing. Now, we have not done that. We took the hit on those prices increases, and we still delivered units at the price that we sold them for. But now keep in mind, our sale price, our revenue is what it is. It's finite.
It's finite.
So if we take a 30% hit across the board, then that 30% hit is right at the bottom line, which goes back to what I said. You can project the project to be 15% to be a very good project, but by the time you're done, realistically, you're probably in the 8 to 11% profit margin because you've had to take those hits.
Okay, so this episode is all about controversy, and I got another one for you. When it comes to building supplies, is there such a thing as cheap material? Are you using cheap material to build?
No.
So why?
And there's no such thing.
So
Drywall
that's
is
the problem.
drywall is drywall. It all has a fire rating. It has a CSA approval rating. Things have to comply with Ontario Building Code. At the end of the day, the material that we use all has to comply. So, do you have porcelain versus ceramic versus marble? Yes. Is marble a better product than porcelain? Absolutely. Is porcelain a better product than ceramic? Absolutely. Is ceramic a cheap building product? No.
Wait a second. Joe, jump in on this.
Yeah.
When you hire a general contractor, at times they're called out and said, why are you using cheaper material? Cheaper material. I'm going to put that in quotations. You guys somehow get summed up and locked into the general contractor that's doing a basement. Now all of a sudden they think you, being a small, independent, family-owned builder, are cutting corners, making it cheaper. All of a sudden you're not as good as Green Park. This is obviously the biggest controversy of them all. Would you guys say that you're using the best material and whoever is deciding that you're cutting corners is wrong?
I don't know how to answer that.
That's a mic drop right there.
He called you out.
I know he called me out.
Okay, I'll jump in here.
Yeah.
Realistically speaking, Green Park and One Urban are using the exact same trades. Fact. Our form workers are the same form workers that Green Park is using. Our drywallers are the same drywallers that Green Park is using. Our drywall is the same drywall that Green Park is using. There really is no different. What is different is that Green Park has been around a very, very long time and has built a legacy for themselves and have pumped out some really good products in this city, and they should be very, very proud of their accomplishments. That being said, there really isn't such thing as a cheap product. It's all the same. I'm using the same product that everybody else is using. Now, everything comes at a price point, okay? So if I'm selling a $500,000 condo, I have to make sure that I factor in the land cost, the pre-construction consultation costs, or the consultant costs or soft costs, as they're known in our industry. I have to make sure that I factor in our building materials, our permit costs, our development charge costs, and then I have to make a little bit of money at the end. So on a $500,000 condo, you're going to get $500,000 condo material. If I'm selling a $4 million condo, you're going to get $4 million material. So there is better products out there that can be used, but it all comes at different price points. It's no different than walking into Chevrolet and buying a Chevrolet, I don't even know, Cruze, or walking into Mercedes and buying an S-Class. It all comes at a price point. You can buy a Chevrolet Cruze for $20,000, or you can buy an S-Class for $200,000. Aren't they both cars?
A lot of people think drywall is drywall, plywood is plywood. But what you're telling me now on camera is that if you want a better home, you have to fork over the dollars.
Well, that comes down to features and finishes.
No,
really,
exactly.
ultimately.
Thank you.
That's what it comes down to.
So now you're talking about the details is what makes it
Absolutely.
more expensive.
That's right. So you're talking about drywall is drywall, plywood is plywood, steel studs are steel studs. Now, what gets put down as a finish is different. You can have a quartz countertop like we have on this desk, or you can have a laminate countertop that could be put down on a more affordable unit.
But these are upgrades.
Absolutely.
Like, would they be considered as upgrades?
In some cases. And in other cases, they might be standard. Again, if you're buying a $4 million condo or a $4 million house, this should be standard.
So the difference is, so now that comes to the very last question of this episode. Standard. How do we determine what's standard? Because standard is not someone else's standard. So, for example, if you're saying that laminate should not be the standard in a $4 million home, who decides this? The builder?
The market.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, we are in a competitive market. Just like any other market, it's competitive. It could be the car market. It could be any market. The condo market is a competitive market. So we are constantly comparing ourselves to our competitors to make sure that we are providing the same quality and workmanship that our competitors are providing. And that establishes the standard across the marketplace.
And I think that there's an expectation from purchasers as well, that if they're spending a certain amount of money, they should get a certain product in their building or in their unit.
So you're telling me and everyone else watching that it's not you who decides. It's you're looking at the market and what the market is saying that this is what should be in this home.
That's
Ultimately, the market commands everything. It's
So-
it's the end consumer that commands everything.
So
at
then
the end of the day.
again, I ask from the very beginning of this episode, why is it that the builders are getting blamed for maybe lack of quartz countertop? Why is the builder getting blamed for all of it?
Because prices have skyrocketed so much in the last few years, where 10 years ago you can buy a condo for $300,000 in the city of Toronto, and now you have to spend $600,000 for that same condo. But people don't say the same thing about a stick of butter. Stick of butter is $8 right now, and it's $9 if it's wrapped in 4 pieces.
What?
Yeah, fact check that.
So do you think people are not talking about that because it's such a small purchase? Do you think that's the big problem?
No, I think people are talking about that. I think they are. I mean,
But they're still buying it.
absolutely.
Now, are they still buying homes? No, they're not.
But there's a lot of other factors that come into play here. Interest rates,
That's for another episode, though.
maybe the next one.
Because interest rates is the deciding factor.
Listen, when the Bank of Canada is giving out interest rates at 1% like they were a few years ago, and in some cases even lower,
Yeah.
you can buy anything. And anybody can qualify for that because it's 0% interest, or it's 1% interest, or 2% interest. You can go buy $1 million home and not worry about it. But when you have to buy that same $1 million home at 7.5% interest, now all of a sudden your payments are significantly higher, and now you can't afford it anymore. So is it the builder or is it the Bank of Canada?
But yet now all of a sudden you're saying that no one has a savings account, someone that has a little nest egg that they can put towards a home. But during COVID, everyone was spending like as if they had millions of dollars. So why is it that the consumer had tons of money during COVID, and now apparently no one has anything for a down payment?
Again, interest rates were low during COVID.
Exactly.
You guys are the best. You have the butter there?
How much is a stick of Gailey butter?
$6.90 for a stick of butter?
For a block.
Okay. $7. What did you say? You said about
$8.
$8. Okay. So that's astronomical.
Because he shops at Longo's.
Oh, you shop at a Longo's.
I take the Longo way home.
Shout out to Longo's. So now, guys, to wrap up a 20-minute second controversial episode, everyone's got to know if they have any hate mail, where could they reach you guys?
At oneurban.ca across all our social platforms, info@oneurban.ca, on our email 416-741-4777. And I am your host, Nick Stilo. This is my co-host, Joe Villar. Groundbreakers out, where dreams get real and bricks get laid. Until the next plot twist, happy building.
See you guys.